The hour of convening having arrived, all members of this house will please report to your assigned seats. All members will please report to your assigned seats. Mr. Clerk, would you ring the bell? We are going to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Is your tablet not working?
No, he's good.
He was excused. We got him.
Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Doorkeepers will please close the doors and keep them closed. Good morning. We will begin our day today with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Our chaplain this morning will be introduced by the gentleman from the 138th House District, Chairman Mike Chokas. Chairman Chokas.
Super. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, before I introduce Father Theodore, I would like to say a little bit about my Greek Orthodox Christian faith. We all know of the travels and letters of Paul to the Greeks in the cities of Athens, Corinth, Salonica, Antioch, Ephesus. As a matter of fact, the ancient Greeks were immediately receptive to this new religion of Jesus Christ. It should be no surprise that the New Testament was originally written in Byzantine Greek, and little has changed in the traditions of our church. Now on to Father Theodore. Father Theodore is a native of Pittsburgh. He moved to Georgia following his then girlfriend, now wife, Stacy. Stacy enrolled at UGA, Go Dogs, and Father Theodore went to school at Kennesaw State University, where he studied, before theology, he studied meteorology and history. He was ordained a priest in March of 2015 after completing his seminary at the Holy Cross Trinity Greek Orthodox at the Holy Cross Greek Orthodox Church School of Theology in Brookline, Massachusetts. He is now the priest at the Holy Cross Greek Orthodox Church in Macon. And it was interesting. We had a conversation a few weeks ago, and we were talking about the hereafter and possibilities of going to heaven. And he answered me in a meteorological term. He said, "Mike, you got about a 60% chance right now." So with that being said, let me introduce you to Father Theodore, my priest.
Good morning. First and foremost, I must thank the speaker for having me here this morning, and this honor of being here, and also to Representative Chokas for the great honor of having been invited here today as the chaplain of the day. And as a pastor and priest of the Greek Orthodox Church, the invitation to have the blessing to speak to you all today really seems quite fitting. This week on Thursday, March 25th, we remember the 200th anniversary of the declaration of Greek independence from the Ottoman Empire. Now, if one examines my last name, Emer, however you want to pronounce it, with any kind of scrutiny, you might assume that I don't think he's Greek. And if you assume that, you are correct, actually. My ethnic roots from a couple generations back are from the Netherlands, Germany, and Ireland. So why am I up here speaking to you all today as a Greek Orthodox clergyman about Greek independence? Well, really, it stems from a journey that began in college. I discovered the richness, the depth, and history of the Orthodox Church that traces its lineage back to Jesus Christ, his holy apostles, and their successors. And additionally, I encountered in a new and profound manner a focus on the reality of Jesus Christ becoming man and the ramifications of that fact. One of the key principles of our Christian faith is a principle that's not always evident on the surface. A good Greek word, eleftheria, freedom. God did not create us simply to follow rules or to be robots. He created us out of his divine love as dynamic beings with the free will to utilize the potentiality given to us. God grants us the freedom to engage with the mystery of life from the day of our birth. So in my learning of the Greek language, there's this really nice little wish that's given to a woman who's nearing birth. Kali eleftheria. Literally, it means like good freedom. And I like to view this wish, good freedom, in sort of two ways. First of all, I like to think of it like good freedom to the mother from this special gift that you've been carrying around with you for these past few months. Good freedom from that. But secondly, and even more important, I like to think of this as a wish for the new child. Good freedom, this freedom that you are about to be endowed with as a human being being born into the world. As we read in St. Paul's letter to the Galatians, we are called to freedom. However, with that freedom comes a great responsibility. St. Paul continues with his teaching that we need to use this freedom that we're endowed with wisely, not for our own selfish means, but as servants, following the example and way of the Lord himself. Thus, it was no mistake that March 25th was the day chosen by the Greek people to declare their independence. March 25th is the day of the Annunciation, 9 months to the day before the birth of Jesus Christ, the day that the Archangel Gabriel announced to Mary that she would give birth to the Messiah, the one who would give the world the opportunity for freedom from sin and death. Jesus Christ, who himself said that he came to serve, not be served, served as an example to the heroes of the Greek Revolution. They chose to put their own livelihoods at risk in order to open the doors to freedom for others. And we are all called to this same high calling of facilitating this opportunity for those around us. And you all have this potentiality in a very concrete manner as those who serve in government to use the freedom wisely that you've been given as an opportunity to serve our brothers and sisters out of love. God, as the all-powerful one, could have made us robots, just pulling our strings around like puppets. But instead, he gave us, being made in his image and likeness, the ability, the blessing to be co-creators and co-workers with him in this mystery of life. This is the beauty of the freedom that he has given us, which we facilitate in a country like the United States. We do not force people into submission, but we foster a society where it's a joy and an honor to serve our brothers and sisters and to employ our freedom wisely. As we honor the heroes of the Greek Revolution this week, people who also saw inspiration in the heroes of the American Revolution, may we also be inspired by them to honor God's image found in each and every one of us as people of freedom, using that freedom out of love for our neighbor, whoever they might be, which ultimately gives glory to our God and our Creator. Amen. At this time, I would ask you to rise and entreat our Lord in prayer. Let us pray to the Lord. Lord, have mercy. Eternal God and Father, ruler of the entire universe, ever enthroned in the minds and hearts of your faithful servants everywhere, we recognize your mystical presence among us and entreat you to remain in our midst as we come together this day. We pray to you to watch over and bless these servants, strengthening them and all of us, both in times of hardship and times of joy, making us worthy to wisely use our freedom given to us by you. For you are most holy and blessed, along with your co-eternal Son, Jesus Christ, and your all-holy good and life-creating Spirit, now and forever, and to the ages of ages. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Doorkeepers will unlock the doors. Chair recognizes Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Information and Audits has read the journal of the previous legislative day and found it to be correct. And furthermore, Mr. Speaker, Chairman England and I know that being 20 in the 70s was much more fun than being 70 in the 20s.
Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Mr. Burns, 159 moves following be established as the order of business during the first part of the period. Unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions. Second reading of bills and resolutions. Reports of standing committees. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions. Morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 782 by Representative Malo of the 163rd, Stevens of the 164th, Hitchens of the 161st, and Petrie of the 166th. Bill be titled an act to amend the act creating the Chatham Area Transit Authority.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 783 by Representative Stevens of the 164th, and Mallow of the 163rd. A bill being titled an act to authorize the governing authority of the city of Savannah.
Intergovernmental
House
coordination.
Bill 784 by Representative McLaurin of the 51st, Bennett of the 94th, Evans of the 57th, Park of the 101st, Moore of the 95th, and others. A bill be titled an act to amend Part 5, Article 4, Chapter 11 of Title 16, the official code of Georgiana relating Brady Law regulations.
Public safety and homeland security.
House Bill 785 by Representative Maynard of the 56th, Marin of the 96th, Lopez of the 86th, Lim of the 99th, and Thomas of the 65th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the official code of Georgiana relating to elections and primaries generally.
Special Committee on Election Integrity.
House Bill 786 by Representative Maynard of the 56th, Lim of the 99th, and Thomas of the 65th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the official code of Georgiana relating to elections and primaries generally.
Special Committee on Election Integrity.
House Bill 787 by Representative Wen of the 89th, Park of the 101st, Lim of the 99th, Lopez of the 86th, and Marin of the 96th. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 12 of Chapter 3, Title 38, the official code of Georgiana relating to Emergency Communications Authority.
Public safety and homeland security.
House Bill 788 by Representative Park of the 101st, Wen of the 89th, Lim of the 99th. Bill be titled an act to amend Part 5, Article 4, Chapter 11 of Title 16 of the official code of Georgiana relating to Brady Law regulations.
Public safety and homeland security.
House Bill 789 by Representative Lim of the 99th, Wen of the 89th, Park of the 101st, Lopez of the 86th, and Marin of the 96th. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 35 of the official code of Georgiana relating to deployment and training of peace officers.
Public safety and homeland security.
House Bill 805 by Representative Carpenter of the 4th and Clark of the 147th. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 3 of the official code of Georgiana relating to alcoholic beverages.
Regulated industries.
House Bill 806 by Representative Paris, the 142nd, Thomas, the 39th, Davis, the 87th, Cannon, the 58th, Mitchell, the 88th. Bill being titled an act to amend Title 31 of the official code of Georgiana relating to health.
Health and Human Services.
House Bill 807 by Representative Cooper, the 43rd. A bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 12 of Title 24 of the official code of Georgiana relating to medical and other confidential information.
Health and Human Services.
House Bill 808 by Representative Schofield of the 60th, Scott of the 76th, Bernal of the 77th, Davis of the 87th, and McLeod of the 105th. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 34 of the official code of Georgiana relating to labor and industrial relations.
Industry and Labor.
House Resolution 427 by Representative Earhart of the 36th, Ridley of the 6th, Powell of the 32nd, Barton of the 5th, Belton of the 112th, and others. A resolution creating a House Study Committee on Public Funding, Transparency, and Membership of the State Bar of Georgia.
Regulated industries.
House Resolution 428 by Representative Gaines, the 117th, Wiedauer, the 119th, Dempsey, the 13th, Jones, the 25th, Maynard, the 56th. A resolution creating the House Study Committee on Mental Health and Substance Use Disorder.
Health and Human Services.
House Resolution 429 by Representative Maynard, the 56th, Holly, the 111th, Thomas, the 65th, Bodie, the 62nd, and Lim of the 99th. A resolution recognizing the presence of historically black colleges and universities and dedicating a bridge in their honor.
Transportation.
House Resolution 430 by Representative Scott of the 76th, Schofield of the 60th, Davis of the 87th, Bernal of the 77th, and McLeod of the 105th. A resolution urging the governor to remove the Commissioner of Labor.
Industry and Labor.
Senate Bill 285 by Senator Jones of the 10th. The bill being titled an act to amend the act creating the Henry County Water Authority.
Intergovernmental coordination.
Senate Bill 297 by Senator Miller of the 49th and Hatchett of the 50th. Bill being titled an act to amend the act providing a method of compensating the members of the Board of Education of Hall County.
Intergovernmental coordination.
Senate Bill 298 by Senator Miller of the 49th and Hatchett of the 50th. A bill to be adopted, an act amending and act creating a Board of Commissioners for Hall County.
Intergovernmental coordination.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 778 by Representative Hill of the 3rd and Tarvin of the 2nd, a bill to authorize the City of Ringgold to exercise all redevelopment and other powers under the Redevelopment Powers Law. House Bill 779 by Representative Bentley of the 139th, a bill relating to general provisions regarding insurance. House Bill 780 by Representative Leverett of the 33rd, Evstration of the 104th, Fleming of the 121st, a bill relating to retirement and pensions. House Bill 781 by Representative Stevens of the 164th, a bill to create a Board of Elections and Registration for Chatham County. House Bill 790 by Representative Cameron of the 1st and Tarvin of the 2nd, a bill to create the City of Chickamauga Public Facilities Authority. House Bill 791 by Representative Wilkerson of the 38th and Nolowitz of the 42nd, Allen of the 40th, Bruce of the 61st, Reeves of the 34th, and others, a bill to amend an act creating a new charter for the City of Powder Springs. House Bill 792 by Representative Meeks of the 178th and Werkheiser of the 157th, a bill to create and establish the Wayne County Altamaha River and Leisure Services Authority. House Bill 793 by Representative Meeks of the 178th and Werkheiser of the 157th, a bill to create and establish the Wayne County Public Facilities Authority. House Bill 794 by Representative Howard of the 124th, Prince of the 127th, Newton of the 123rd, a bill to amend an act regulating public instruction for the County of Richmond. House Bill 795 by Representative Jackson of the 128th, a bill to repeal an act providing a supplement to the compensation of the judge of the probate court of Glasscock County. House Bill 796 by Representative Gaines of the 117th, Quidauer of the 119th, Fry of the 118th, a bill to amend an act creating the Classic Center Authority for Clark County. House Bill 797 by Representative Gaines of the 117th, Quidauer of the 119th, a bill to amend an act to grant residents of Clark County and Clark County School District an exemption from certain ad valorem taxes. House Bill 798 by Representative Evans of the 57th, Holland of the 54th, Metz of the 55th, Couch of the 50th, Allen of the 40th, and others, a bill to amend an act creating a Board of Commissioners of Fulton County. House Bill 799 by Representative Droner of the 85th and Lopez of the 86th, a bill to repeal an act creating Clarkston Development Authority. House Bill 800 by Representative Perkle of the 155th, a bill to authorize the assessment of the collection of a technology fee by the Probate Court of Ben Hill County. House Bill 801 by Representative Irwin of the 28th, a bill to reconstitute and reestablish the Board of Registration and Elections for Stevens County. House Bill 802 by Representative Irwin of the 28th, the bill to amend an act to provide Stevens County Board of Registration and Elections. House Bill 803 by Representative Ralston of the 7th, a bill to authorize the assessment and collection of a technology fee by the Magistrate Court of Fannin County. House Bill 804 by Representative Leverett of the 33rd, a bill to provide a new charter for the City of Hull. Senate Bill 286 by Senator Jones of the 10th and Strickland of the 17th, a bill to amend an act amending and restating the Henry County Development Authority Act. Senate Bill 292 by Senator Parent of the 42nd, a bill to provide a homestay exemption from City of Decatur Independent School District ad valorem taxes. Senate Bill 293 by Senator Parent of the 42nd, Jones of the 10th, Butler of the 55th, Jackson of the 41st, Davenport of the 44th, and others, a bill to amend an act to create and establish in DeKalb County districts from which members of the County Board of Education of DeKalb County shall be elected. Senate Bill 295 by Senator Gooch of the 51st, a bill to create and establish the City of Cleveland Building Authority. Senate Bill 296 by Senator Gooch of the 51st, a bill to amend an act to reconstitute the Board of Commissioners of White County. Through second readers.
Reports of standing committees. The clerk will read.
Representative Shaw Blackman of the 146th District, Chairman of the Committee on Ways and Means, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Ways and Means has under consideration the following bill of the Senate. It's instructed me to report same back to the House following recommendations. Senate Bill 6, due passed by committee substitute, respectfully submitted. Representative Shaw Blackman of the 146th District, Chairman. Representative Jan Tankersley, 160th District, Chairman of the Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Local, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Local is under consideration the following bills of the House. It instructs me to report same back to the House following recommendations. House Bill 599 do pass, House Bill 761 do pass, House Bill 763 do pass, House Bill 764 do pass, House Bill 765 do pass, House Bill 766 do pass, House Bill 767 do pass, House Bill 768 do pass, House Bill 770 do pass, House Bill 775 do pass, House Bill 777 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Jan Tankersley, the 160th District, Chairman. That completes the reading of the reports of standing committees.
All right, we're going on now to the local calendar. We're going on to the local calendar. This House will come to order. On Monday, March 22, this House failed to pass House Bills 760, 772, and 773. The lady from the 58th District served notice of a motion to reconsider the action of the House in failing to give House Bill 760, 772, and 773 the requisite majority. Now is the time for the lady to pursue the motion, if she so desires. What purpose does Representative Cannon rise?
So moved.
Lady has moved that this House reconsider its action in failing to give House Bill 760, 772, and 773 a requisite majority. If there is no objection, we will vote on the reconsideration of the local calendar as a whole with a recorded vote. On the lady's motion that the House reconsider its action in failing to give House Bill 760, 772, and 773 a requisite majority, all those in favor of reconsideration will vote aye. Those opposed to reconsideration will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. All right, I'm going to recognize one parliamentary inquiry. We are not going to relitigate this. I was very lenient yesterday in the number of parliamentary inquiries that we took. What purpose does Representative McLean rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
My inquiry is normally courtesy of the House, local rules that we allow reconsiderations to pass.
I don't know that we have a policy like that on reconsideration, Representative. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the lady's motion. The ayes are 69, the nays are 90. The motion has failed, and this House has failed to reconsider its action. Okay, now we're going on to the local calendar. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills. If there is no objection, we will vote on the local calendar as a whole with a recorded vote. Hearing none, it is so ordered. What purpose does Chairman Ballinger rise?
I'd like to make a motion.
State your motion.
I'd like that this House recommit House Bill 599 back to the Intergovernmental Coordination Committee.
Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 599 by Representative Thomas, the 21st, the City of Woodstock. House Bill 599 changes the corporate limits of the City of Woodstock.
On the lady's motion that House Bill 599 be removed from the local calendar and recommitted to the Intergovernmental Coordination Committee, is there objection? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and it is so ordered. Is there any objection to the previous the clerk will read the local calendar without House Bill 599. Clerk will read.
House Bill 761 by Representative Carter, the 92nd City of Lithonia. House Bill 763 by Representative Hill III, Catoosa County. House Bill 764 by Representative Hill III, City of Fort Oglethorpe. House Bill 765 by Representative Hill III, Catoosa County. House Bill 766 by Representative Hill III, Catoosa County. House Bill 767 by Representative Yurda of the 152nd, Lee County. House Bill 768 by Representative Powell of the 32nd, City of Royston. House Bill 770 by Ralston of the 7th, Gilmer County. House Bill 775 by Representative Bentley of the 139th, Taylor County. House Bill 777 by Representative Wilson of the 80th, DeKalb County.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on the local calendar? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bills? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall these bills now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bills on the local calendar will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of the bills on the local calendar, the ayes are 156, the nays are 1. These bills, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore passed. We're going on now to morning orders. Going on to morning orders. If you signed up for a morning order, be making your way to the front of the chamber. We have a total of 10 minutes today for morning orders. Chair recognizes Chairman Dubnik and Representative Becky Evans for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the House Education Committee, we are here to recognize and celebrate Reading Awareness Month across the state of Georgia. There is a movement afoot, hear me when I say this, that all children, whether we are parents, grandparents, neighbors, caregivers, that we read aloud to our children for 15 minutes each day. We know that a child's ability to read on grade level by the end of the 3rd grade is one of the greatest predictors of success in their life. We have all kinds of data, both on a state and a federal level, and one of the best ways to help a child read on grade level is to have someone read to them. So go home, grab a book, grab a child, read to them, and help to introduce that healthy habit into their household every day as we celebrate Reading Awareness Month. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Matthew Wilson for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's been a great deal said in this chamber and nationally about the heinous shootings that killed 8 people here last week. There's been a great deal said, but I don't think that's enough. Are we just going to run out the clock on this legislative session without doing something about it? I was in a position of anger and frustration a week ago when a mass shooter rocked our state, and then yesterday in Colorado, 10 people were gunned down getting their groceries. We've offered bills that have received no hearings. We've channeled voices that have been stonewalled. Does gun violence really have to touch your family before you're ready to worry about something other than your next primary? Let's do something about gun violence and about the epidemic in our society. Please, I respectfully beg of you. I pray this is not a tragedy that has to afflict a majority of Georgians before this body can address it. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Powell and Representative DeLoach for a morning order.
Hey, brother. Good morning, colleagues. I'm proud to stand here with my friend from the coast today as we come up here to honor the life and memory of Martin Neesmith. Now, most of you folks here don't know Martin Neesmith, but if you did, you'd have met one of a kind. Martin passed away this past November, and I can tell you there wasn't anybody any finer. He was probably, in his professional life, Martin was the youngest Chevrolet dealer in this country. Served on the GADA board, the national board, but there's some other things that are so special about Martin. You know, in his political career up here, he was never elected, but Martin served on the Board of Regents. And back in them days, you really didn't know what was a headache at that time to serve on the Board of Regents when he was there. But Martin Neesmith was probably, without a doubt, one of the most decent human beings you've ever met. Always had an open hand to help charities, from Claxton to South Georgia to Shellman's Bluff, where they located to. Helped build a clinic down there for a lot of the friends and neighbors down there on the coast. Not a nicer guy. If Marty was alive today, he'd be cutting up and having fun with you. But for that, we're going to put this resolution on my desk, I think, probably be fitting us in the back. And for anybody that would do him the honor, whether you knew him or not, of coming by there and signing this resolution to proclaim hallelujah for the life of Martin Neesmith. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Chair recognizes Representative Stacey Evans for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. Most of us in here work outside this chamber, and sometimes even during session we can be called away, and this happened to me last week. So I missed day 34 so that I could do some justice in a courthouse. We'll see how that turns out in a few weeks, I guess. So I missed adding my yes vote in support of Senate Bill 140, putting a monument in honor of Governor Zell Miller on our Capitol grounds. And so I wanted to add my voice of support, at least in this morning order, because it's really hard for me to overstate what Zell Miller's willingness to push for the Hope Scholarship Program did for me personally. I feel certain that I never would have gotten to Athens, to the University of Georgia, wouldn't have learned how to call the dogs, wouldn't have met my husband, wouldn't have my 2 beautiful kids, and certainly wouldn't be standing here before you this morning. I am that turtle on a fence post. And I know that we've talked about that phrase in here a few times. Dean Calvin-Smyre talks about it a lot, but every time I've heard him say it, he gives credit to Governor Miller for that phrase, and I don't know if Governor Miller should be giving credit to someone else, but that's who I think about. And I think of that phrase as metaphorical. Someone is putting a turtle up on a fence post so that turtle can see things that turtle can't see when it's down on the ground. And that's what Zell Miller and the Hope Scholarship did for me and so many first-generation college students, lifted us up so that we could see a world of possibilities that were impossible for us to even imagine where we were in our current state. This government made that possible. That was a big thing. And I just want to remind us that we can do big things, and I hope we continue to strive for those big things and not get caught up in the small things. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the will.
Chair recognizes Representative Earhart for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In honor of Women's History Month, today I recognize Sergeant Leanne Hester of the 617th Military Police Company, a National Guard unit out of Kentucky. Hester is the first woman to receive the Silver Star since World War II for exceptional valor. Hester's squad was shadowing a supply convoy on March 20th, 2005, when anti-Iraqi fighters ambushed the convoy. Her squad moved to the side of the road, flanking the insurgents and cutting off their escape route. She led her team through the kill zone and into a flanking position where she assaulted a trench line with grenades and M203 grenade launcher rounds. She and her squad leader then cleared 2 trenchers, at which time she killed 3 insurgents. When the fight was over, 27 insurgents were dead, 6 wounded, and 1 captured. Being the first female soldier since World War II to receive the medal is significant to Hester. But she doesn't dwell on that fact. She says, "It really doesn't have anything to do with me being female," she said. "It's about the duties I performed that day as a soldier." Your training kicks in, and the soldier in you kicks in. You've got a job to do, protecting yourself and your fellow comrades. What an amazing and brave young woman. Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Representative Taylor for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning. It is my honor, in recognition of National Women's History Month, to highlight a friend and mentor to many of us and to introduce to others the Honorable Georgiana Thomas Sinquefield. I am so happy to share that she is also watching this presentation. It is more than fitting to applaud the former Georgia State Representative, who at the time of her retirement was the longest serving woman in the history of the Georgia General Assembly. She was elected in 1982 and chaired the Committee on Children and Youth for 14 years. She also chaired the Subcommittee of Appropriations on Human Development, which had the responsibility to oversee the budgets of the Department of Human Resources, Juvenile Justice, Veterans Affairs, Medicaid and Medicare, and the Department of Labor. Her legislation and education preserved programs for often marginalized students, and later she authored legislation to create the Office of Child Advocate. Sinquefield also worked to ensure the availability of resources for the health care of our senior citizens. Policies, all policies we are yet still fighting. She established herself as a champion of legislative solutions for all Georgians, particularly children and youth. Sinquefield was elected as the first female chair of the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus. She chaired the Georgia Democratic Party delegate selection, and she has also been appointed on the Georgia Supreme Court. I want to present this prestigious award, of one which many courageous and compassionate and committed women in the state have now received, to my other mother, who challenged me at a very early age to become conscious of and engaged in the policy needs of our communities. She recruited me and put me to work many, many years ago, and it was there I discovered my passion for public service. I cannot express how grateful I am to Georgiana for taking me under her wings. Thank you.
Let's wave at her, y'all.
She's watching.
The time for
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Time for morning orders has expired. there were members of both caucuses who were not reached. And if you want to be reached on the next legislative day, then sign up with a messenger. What purpose does Representative Earhart rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
I move that Senate Bill 144 be recommitted to the Rules Committee.
Clerk will read the caption.
Senate Bill 144 by Senator Tippins, the 37th, Gooch, the 51st, Cowser, the 46th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 1 of Chapter 3 of Title 8, the official code of Georgiana and Taylor relating the general provisions for housing authorities.
On the lady's motion that Senate Bill 144 be recommitted to the Rules Committee, is there any objection? Is there objection? Chair hears none, and it is on its way back to Rules. We're going to pause for about 5 or 10 minutes before we go on to the Rules calendar. Okay, we're going back to the Rules calendar. We're going on to the Rules calendar. Going on to the Rules calendar. Senate Bill 219 was postponed yesterday to the next legislative day, and it will be postponed again today to the next legislative day. The clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 119.
Senate Bill 119 by Senator Harper the 7th, Goodman the 8th, Burke the 11th, Mullis the 53rd, Anderson the 24th, be entitled an act to amend Code Section 12-690 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to permit required for burning wood, land, marshes, or other flammable vegetation. This bill having referred to the Committee on Natural Resources and Environment, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative McDonald to present the bill.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, this Senate Bill 119 was brought to us by our new Chief Forester, Tim Larimore, and the Georgia Forestry Agency. Senate Bill 119 eliminates the system of reporting in Code Section 12690 and aligns with our government goals of saving taxpayer monies with a cost savings of over $175,000. The 160 annual savings is eliminating 16 phone lines that go to the Georgia Forestry Commission that have homeowners calling in when they want to burn leaf piles in their own yard, and $15,000 is to manage the website system that runs the phone system, the platform there. The Georgia Forestry will continue to work with all our media outlets around our state of Georgia and letting them know of high wind and dangerous burn situations that we might have throughout our state during the burn season. What this bill does not do is take local control away from our counties that have different code requirements for burning. If you do have piles that you're putting together with any type of mechanical device like a tractor, you still will have to call the Georgia Forestry Commission for that. This only eliminates homeowners doing personal leaf piles with a rake and by hand. Mr. Speaker, if I don't have any questions, I will yield the well.
You have a question if you care to yield.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Dreyer in the gallery to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that burning yard waste contributes to greenhouse gases that contribute to global warming? And isn't it also true that sometimes in very dry conditions, consumers might not be aware of a fire hazard with burning in their yard, which they could learn from calling the Department of Forestry?
Well, in this bill, the Georgia Forestry has established for the first time guidelines that require that you have to be 25 feet from your property line and 50 feet from any structure. And if the gentleman feels in his heart that this is against global warming, that's your decision.
Thank you.
You have no further questions.
Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of Senate Bill 119. The ayes are 126, the nays are 30. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Resolution 134.
Senate Resolution 134 by Senator Walker, the 20th, Dugan of the 30th, Kilpatrick of the 32nd, Butler of the 55th, Parent of the 42nd, and others, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution of the State of Georgia so as to provide for the suspension of compensation for certain public officers who are suspended because of an indictment for a felony. This resolution having been referred to the Committee on Judiciary, that committee recommends that this resolution be adopted.
Chair recognizes Chairman F. Strachan to present the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, Senate Resolution 134 is a proposed amendment to the Constitution, which would, in circumstances where a statewide elected official or a member of the General Assembly is under indictment for a felony offense, and it's determined that that official is to be suspended from office because the felony is related to the office he or she holds, that the pay due for the public office shall be suspended. The pay would be recoverable if the person's ultimately acquitted of the offense, but it's just suspension while they are suspended from office and unable to do the job that they were elected to do under those circumstances. So we're removing a provision from the Constitution. I know there are some other speakers signed up on this, so I'll yield the well unless there are any questions.
You do not have any questions.
Yield the well. Thank you.
Chair recognizes to speak to the bill Chairman Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise in support of SR 134. We did a good thing almost 20 years ago to set up the system whereby an indicted elected official indictment shall be reviewed by a panel appointed by the governor, and with careful consideration as to whether or not the alleged criminal activity relates to the office holder, the panel has the right to suspend the office holder. It's totally appropriate and positive movement, in my view, that we also suspend the pay. You do have a constitutional right not to be incarcerated wrongly, but I'm not sure in the private world or in instances of the public world you have a right to a job and a pay for a job that you're not performing. I rise to support 134. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Wilson to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise in favor of SR 134. Sometimes when I'm sitting up in the gallery and we're studying and debating these bills, I hear someone say solution in search of a problem, and I kind of involuntarily flinch. So it brings me great joy to be able to, this morning to say that this is the solution to our current problem. In Judiciary Committee, we discussed several hypotheticals that arise from our current suspension process and what adding these sanctions to it would mean. And I'm sensitive to the prospect of this being used for political prosecution, but this is already in our Constitution for a reason, and I think we've got a good balance with several different offices charged to weigh in. But moreover, this isn't a hypothetical. We've got 2 insurance commissioners right now. One was barely on the job a few weeks before his indictment in a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. He's about to go a whole term without having done the job that Georgians put their trust in him to do. But the taxpayers have been on the hook for his salary, his health care, and benefits this whole time. When you're a public official, you're not entitled to the job. None of us are entitled to this job. People put their trust in us to represent their interests, to make their government work for them. If you can't do that, can't do the job, you shouldn't get paid for it. Now, I think the indicted insurance commissioner should have resigned because it's clear he views the public trust as nothing more than his own trust fund. But since no one can be compelled to that end, we've got to make it so that public corruption doesn't get so comfortable you can just hang around picking up a paycheck until the clock runs out. We've got to do our job here, and I urge you to support this measure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the floor. Yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this resolution now be adopted? All those in favor of the adoption of the resolution will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of Senate Resolution 134. The ayes are 169, the nays are 0. This resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 238.
Senate Bill 238 by Senator Strickland, and the 17th to be titled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 1 of the Official Code of Georgiana relating to general provisions so as to revise provisions relating to the enactment of the Official Code of Georgia annotated. This bill having referred to the Committee on Code Revision. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Chairman F. Stration to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is the second bill that was requested by the Code Revision Commission for our consideration this year. And this legislation directly relates to the U.S. Supreme Court opinion that was issued in the past 12 months and the accessibility of our laws in Georgia to Georgia citizens. The legislation, to my knowledge, has no known opposition and really could be characterized as cleanup within the law to ensure that there's consistency and compliance with the Supreme Court opinion. I'd be happy to answer any questions and would ask for your favorable consideration.
You do not have any questions.
I yield the well. Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 238 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of Senate Bill 238. The ayes are 166, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 33.
Senate Bill 33 by Senator Dixon to the 45th, Hatch to the 50th, Mullis to the 53rd, Miller to the 49th, and Jackson to the 2nd. Be titled an act to amend Chapter 1 and Title 51, the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding torts, so as to provide a cause of action against perpetrators for victims of human trafficking. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Bonner to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning I rise to present Senate Bill 33. This is a continuation of First Lady Marty Kemp's and the Grace Commission's efforts to eradicate human trafficking here in Georgia. I'd like to thank Chairman F. Stration and his committee for all the work they did to help bring this bill to the floor and all the work that he did personally to see this day happen. Senate Bill 33 does a number of things. First, it creates a new code section to provide for a victim of human trafficking to have a civil cause of action against a perpetrator and allows victims to potentially recover damages and reasonable attorney's fees. Secondly, it creates a statute of limitations for the filing of such a civil action and allows for a stay of that civil action lawsuit while any criminal action arising from the incident of human trafficking is pending. And then third, it allows for the Attorney General to have a cause of action against any perpetrator of human trafficking on behalf of the state under certain circumstances. That's the bill, Mr. Speaker, and I'll stand for any questions.
You do not have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I urge your favorable consideration.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. We'll have somebody take a look at it. Clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of Senate Bill 33, the ayes are 164, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 187.
Senate Bill 187 by Senator Tippins, the 37th, Miller, the 49th, Jackson, the 2nd, Walker, the 20th, and Butler, the 55th, to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 23-519.2 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to eligibility requirements for a Hope Scholarship so as to establish a procedure for students with a disability. This bill having referred to the Committee on Higher Education. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Wiedauer to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. Today I bring to you Senate Bill 187. In January of 2013, a young lady named Grace was running down Millage Avenue in Athens, Georgia as a senior in high school and was struck by a vehicle and left with this traumatic head injury. She recovered, but was left with a significant disability. Went on to the University of Georgia and has been going through that process, going through school is at her pace and her abilities as her abilities can allow her to. Unfortunately for Grace, with the 7-year rule, her eligibility for Hope ran out before she could finish. What this does, this simply allows students like Grace the ability to apply for a waiver, and should they meet the requirements as illustrated in the ADA requirements for having such a disability, it would allow them the ability to extend that time to be able to continue their college underneath the Hope program. Does not cost the state a penny, but it gives students like Grace the opportunity to fulfill their dream of graduating from college. Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the well for any questions. If there are none, I ask for your favorable consideration.
You do have a couple of questions. Do you yield?
I will take one.
Chair recognizes Representative Bentley to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
Is it not true that I am a big supporter of individuals living with disabilities in the state of Georgia, and I voted for this bill out of the Higher Education Committee, and I will be voting yes for this bill today on the floor?
I believe that to be true, and I appreciate your support. Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Gentleman yields the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of Senate Bill 187, the ayes are 165, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 86.
Senate Bill 86 by Senator Walker, the 20th Payne to the 54th, Hickman of the 4th, Alberts the 56th, Thompson of the 14th, and others, to be titled an act to amend Part 2 of Article 15 of Chapter 1 of Title 10 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating the Fair Business Practices Act of 1975 so as to provide for requirements for solicitations of services for corporate filings. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Chairman F. Stration to present the bill.
Mr. Speaker, Senate Bill 86, as it comes before you today, I would characterize as one of the most important things that I have done here at the Capitol or that I will do at the Capitol. The bill is not what the caption reflects, but deals with the equitable caregiver statute. And what I'd do is I'd ask your indulgence right now for me to give you a little bit of the history that's going on, the cases that have been used to interpret child custody rights in the state of Georgia, and then ask for your favorable consideration and certainly be open to answer any questions that you might have about the technicalities of the law. So the U.S. Supreme Court has issued an opinion in Troxel versus Granville 2000 that really made clear that the U.S. Constitution protects a parent's rights to parent their child, and that protection is really only overcome if a state can show in their statute that that parent is unfit, that they would cause some sort of harm to the child in that role as a parent. And we were aware of that in 2019 when we passed a very historic act. We passed the Equitable Caregiver Law that allowed for third parties who had a history of taking care of a child to actually be able to be granted custody in the courtroom if under the circumstances that was appropriate to do. And a key element of that was that the judge had to find that the parent was posed harm to the child, physical harm or long-term emotional harm. That element is a necessary element. It's got to be there per U.S. Supreme Court case law. And what we've done since the Equitable Caregiver Statute was passed, we've seen great uses of this law throughout our state. And I would argue, really for the first time in the courtroom, judges have been able to view cases as to what's best for the child from the perspective of the child, rather than just thinking about whose parental rights are in play or who, what parents deserve. Who is the child actually looked to as their caregiver? And that's really an amazing thing that we've had, thanks to this General Assembly taking a big step in passing this law and Governor Kemp's support in 2019. All right, now 2 years later, here's where we are. We've received feedback about the law that really has been sent to me as the author from 2019, and also we've seen subsequent case law interpreting our third-party custody statutes and visitation statutes. And Senate Bill 96, as it's before you today, is a reflection of updates that are not only important to be made, but I would submit to you have to be made for this law to not suffer a very harsh consequence in our appellate courts. In other words, a view that this in some way conflicts with constitutional protections. So what I'd like to do is just briefly go through with you the four big things that this bill does. All right, the first is relatively simple. There's a pro se form. There's a form for unrepresented parties that we put in the statute trying to improve access, and the form has a mistake on it. So we address the mistake by including that harm element that I was talking about earlier. That's the first big thing that's done. The second is that there was a question as to what if a parent had a problem, was unfit, and then later is able to get their act together, is able to care for the child, what happens then? And the legislature very clearly said, and I'll just direct you to, it's the end of the bill here, very clearly said, lines 38 and 39, that the adjudication of a person as an equitable caregiver does nothing to disestablish that parent's rights. We made clear that this was not what is called in juvenile court a TPR, a termination of parental rights. That's not what we're doing here. And parental rights remain in place. Because of that, we must include, I would argue to you, what is reflected here in K, lines 140 to 143. And that is that if a parent is able to get their act together, is able to address the issues that they had, maybe it's a drug addiction issue, maybe it's something else, and they are a fit parent to look after the child, then we must provide a provision where their constitutionally protected rights, according to, I would submit according to Justice O'Connor in the Troxel case, that those protected constitutional rights of a parent are preserved. And failure to include a provision like we have here in K could prove fatal ultimately to this entire statute and all the great work that we did. There's also been a question as to what happens with child support. And the legislature was silent as to child support in this case. I also think a policy argument could be made that an award of child support may incentivize a third party to pursue one of these cases because of a financial reason, and that's not what we were after here. So all we're doing in Senate Bill 86 is just making clear that the court cannot award child support, which, in my opinion, is already the state of the law. But it's just to be clear about that. And if folks have concerns about an equitable caregiver receiving child support from a parent who was determined to be unfit, then bring a bill. I mean, I think that'd be great to debate and discuss this, but all we're doing here is just including what the state of the law is currently. The final provision of the four things this bill does, the final provision is it provides a specific period of look back. So, and that's 5 years as proposed in the bill. So again, an equitable caregiver is, let's say there's a neighbor who a parent says, hey, please look after my child for a period of time. The neighbor looks after the child for an extended period of time, takes care of the child views this person as in a parent-like role, and all the other factors are met, that the parent is unfit to look after the child, and a judge, after considering all that evidence, says, okay, I've determined that the equitable caregiver statute would apply. You know, that is a rigorous legal analysis that's taken place at that point. And what we didn't want to have happen is that somebody who maybe cared for a child years and years ago, say outside of 5 years ago, shows up in court and says, oh yeah, I know this is someone else is the parent of this child, but I'm alleging that I have standing here because I looked for the child. Say when the 14-year-old was an infant, I looked after the child for a year back then. You know, that was not the intent of the law to have an unlimited look back, and there's some specific input that we've received about how this potentially could impact children who have not had contact with the equitable caregiver in a long time. What I'd say to you here today is that we all want to do what's best for kids, and we debate often what do we think truly is going to be the most beneficial and impactful thing for children in our state. And what I'd submit to you here is that the equitable caregiver law we passed was a wonderful, great thing for the children of our state. And this legislation does nothing to change that. In fact, what it does is it strengthens it by protecting it within our law so that courts don't later seek to invalidate or determine to invalidate the statute. Just briefly here. Now, I have heard today some concern in the hall, and I've been contacted by some practitioners who I believe are very well-meaning in the issues that have been brought forward. Interestingly enough, I've been contacted by some people opposing the bill who are also opposed to the equitable caregiver statute from the outset. I don't want to assume intent, but I do think there are some folks who want this statute to be struck by our courts, because they don't like the concept of a third party having standing to bring a custody case. But I do think that consideration needs to be considered by you today. Do we want this statute to be cemented in our law so that it's protected and in place in the future so that judges in the courtroom can do the right thing? And I'll tell you this, anyone who knows me up here and knows how much I care about these issues knows that I'm not going to move forward on this bill without taking input from all those involved, all those who have reached out, and whatever proposal, if we get it to a vote in the Senate, whatever proposal in the Senate is going to be after hearing from those folks, making sure that they're heard and that we have a debate, so that a rigorous discussion so that we can get their concerns addressed as much as possible. I care about this, and the only place I'm coming from on this is ensuring that this law remains in place well into the future. You know, I appreciate your indulgence. I know it's just before lunch, but a green vote on this helps to protect Georgia's kids going forward and helps to protect modern families. The fact is, we now have family circumstances that were not contemplated in original custody laws. And your vote in favor of this here today will help to ensure that this good statute remains in place well into the future. I've made a personal commitment to members in this chamber today as well, that should this bill move forward, and I certainly hope that it does, that this is not the end of the discussion with them, and that we'll be able to continue to work on this so that at the end of session we all can take great pride in the fact that we've strengthened a good and important law. There's a member of our body, I hope he doesn't mind sharing this conversation, but there's a member of our body who's a former judge. Judge shared with me that some of the most difficult cases are circumstances where the judge knows the right thing to do in the courtroom, but the law prohibits him or her from doing it. Knows what's best for the child, and the law stands in the way. And a green vote on 86 will help to ensure that judges can continue to do the right thing in the courtroom, that the child's interests are protected, and that this law can survive to be utilized well into the future. I was asked by a representative about, does this impact foster care? Does not have anything to do with foster care or with juvenile court proceedings. This is a Superior Court custody case determination to be made. I ask for your favorable consideration, Mr. Speaker. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You do have some questions if you care to yield.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes the Minority Caucus leader, Leader Beverly, to your left for a question.
The gentleman yield.
Yes, sir.
In the current scenario, is the equitable caregiver able to receive money from the non-custodial parent?
They can receive, but they cannot be, in my opinion, they cannot be court ordered to make child support payment.
And to that end, can a non-parent custodian be awarded support as well? So if you don't have the child, can you be awarded support?
In my opinion, no, not under the existing statute.
And that leads me to my third question is, are there currently any appellate court cases that are going on right now that address 19.9 3.1? And what is the outcome? If they're not, then where do you see this going?
Yeah, it has been told to me that there are there are cases working their way through the courts, and I can't tell you specifically where each is. I can tell you that this is not a response to any specific appeal or any specific case. That this is an issue I brought last session and that I brought again this year because I believe that we need these protections to ensure that this statute survives well into the future. Thank you, Leader.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Stacey Evans in the gallery to your left.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Am I correct that you could get some sort of partial custody arrangement under the language of the current law without showing that the current custodial parent is unfit?
So I disagree with that interpretation. It is a requirement for standing, and that you'll just see it here as the, point you to lines 110 to 112, which are existing law. it's demonstrated that the child will suffer physical harm or long-term emotional harm, that demonstration is a required element of the existing law.
Does the gentleman further yield?
Yes, ma'am.
And let me preface this by saying I think there's a lot good in this bill, and we've talked about it. My biggest concern is that the way I read this bill is that it does allow a shared custody arrangement between one parent who we think is fine, but it could cause some emotional harm to keep a child away from a second person that has acted as a parent, the equitable caregiver. And so that by K, we take away that ability for there to be a shared arrangement between the parent that has the child and someone who, if kept away from the child, could create that emotional harm. But I think we have different interpretations of the statute, so that my concern with K wouldn't be yours. So that's not really a question at this point, but a statement. But that's my concern with the bill at this point.
So I respectfully, I completely disagree with the assertion. A judge in a courtroom right now, let's say that this is under review, that you have a circumstance, if I understand the hypothetical, where an equitable caregiver, the equitable caregiver statute has been utilized to allow for a joint custody arrangement under these circumstances. The fitness standard remains in place, not only in statute, but also from case law. And it was argued at the time when we passed this in 2019 that judges were so aware of that requirement that it must be included in their orders, otherwise there would be an issue later for those same orders. But to take it a step further, terminating that contact with that third party in the example you've described would cause such emotional harm to the child that the order could be very easily written to ensure that that relationship remains in place and that that custody arrangement remains in place. And I would state this to the lady: if you were willing to vote in support of the bill today, I acknowledge that this is an issue we need to continue to work on here in the final days of this session so that we can make sure that there is a strong consensus bill passed that addresses all the concerns that have been raised in the hallway and ensures that we have a strong law in place that will not be susceptible to appellate review in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for that commitment.
Mr. Speaker, I will yield the well, and I'll ask the members for their favorable consideration.
Gentleman has yielded the well. We have a member that wishes to speak on the bill, and the chair recognizes Representative McLaurin to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, everybody. As always, when I get up here, I want to thank you for your time, and as the chairman pointed out right before lunch as well. Need to emphasize in the strongest possible terms, I respect the chairman, I respect his feeling for these issues. Honestly, we wouldn't be here if he hadn't been the champion of the statutory framework that we're talking about, and which he referenced, which we all approved of a couple years ago and that I was proud to vote for. And we all care about the best interests of children. So fortunately, unlike a lot of debates, we can skip to a more technical posture than having to debate big value differences. There are concerned advocates about this bill. There are concerned members, obviously. And the biggest concern in this bill is the proposed subsection K. I'm in an awkward position to try to dispute what the chairman's saying about the bill, but we're all kind of in that awkward position because, again, the statutory framework that we passed in 2019 was an exemplary step forward in ensuring that the best interest of children was protected by allowing this person, we called an equitable caregiver, which is a model recognized in other states, to participate meaningfully in a child's life because that participation is critical to that child's well-being. I'm in an awkward position to say that the chairman's own fix is not what we need right now. But you heard it from the sponsor himself. This bill is motivated more by a fear of later review by courts and what they might conclude than it is by any sort of substantive policy reason why the structural framework we put in place is not sufficient. I'll say that again. This is a bill that attempts to stave off a constitutional challenge whose parameters we're not quite sure of yet. We've heard about the Troxel decision, a plurality opinion from Justice O'Connor that doesn't necessarily bind courts to go in one direction or another in ruling on the scope of a parent's rights. All we know is that the Supreme Court does have an interest in a natural parent's or a legal parent's rights over a child. That's all we know from that opinion. We don't know what specific pathway that's going to take. We don't know how Georgia courts specifically are going to construe that line of cases. But there is a concern, and if I were the champion of such an important statute, I would also share a concern that it not be struck down. I think that's completely relatable. But here's what's also relatable, in my opinion. The idea that an equitable caregiver is not just a third party. This is not a grandparent case. This is not a friend of the family case. The kind of visitation that we're talking about courts ordering, the type of custody that would be ordered, is for somebody whose role in a child's life is so essential and so basic that it basically equates to parenthood. I mean, that's why this was such an important step forward, is we're recognizing that in many families, the availability of the equitable caregiver is the same emotionally, physically, as having a parent, and it's allowing the law to catch up with that very fundamental recognition. I have to echo the chairman that that's such an incredibly important step, critical to protect the best interests of the child. But that's also why, to a member's comment from the floor, subsection K that terminates that relationship if one or more parents, one or both parents, can show that they're not personally harm to the child, that's a mismatch. And I'll explain why. If you go to lines 140 through 143, it allows the termination of the equitable caregiver relationship if the parent can show that they're no longer a risk personally of causing physical harm or long-term emotional harm. But that's a different standard than we set up for how to become an equitable caregiver. The standard we set up before, if I can direct your attention to lines 101 until 112, the 5 factors, we're talking about an equitable caregiver who has fully and completely undertaken a permanent, unequivocal, committed, and responsible role, engaged in consistent caretaking, a bonded and dependent relationship, full and permanent, I stress permanent, responsibilities as a parent of the child without expectation of financial compensation, and of course, physical harm or long-term emotional harm. Those are the things that an equitable caregiver already has to show by clear and convincing evidence. So this is not a situation where if the parent is able to show, well, I'm not personally a risk, that's enough. If the parent says, I'm not personally an emotional or physical risk, that's well and good, that's good for the child, but that doesn't mean that equitable caregiver relationship that we just went through the factors for is any less critical to the child's life. And it's awkward that this is in the bill, but again, the reason it doesn't square is because we have to remember where it comes from. It's an attempt to comply with some future litigation. But what are the facts on the litigation that's happening? And to the minority leader's point, several trial courts, as my understanding, the first level of court, have evaluated these claims, these constitutionality arguments already. And of course, the constitutionality argument is that if a court forces indefinite visitation or custody, that interferes unduly with the parent's constitutional right to raise their children. That's the argument. That's the worry that will be the constitutional challenge. But several trial courts have already passed over that argument. And the appellate courts have not ruled on that argument yet, as the minority leader pointed out. And we don't know how that 2000, again, 20 years ago, U.S. Supreme Court decision will wreak any havoc on this statute, if at all. So that litigation is a big question mark. It's a huge question mark. And what this bill is doing is saying, well, instead of just waiting a minute to figure out what those appellate courts are going to say, let me tell you something. It could be that they say that the statute is unworkable and that we need to do something else. But you know what they'll do when they do that opinion? They'll give us specific guidance about exactly how to fix it. For example, I could imagine a subsection K where instead of just removing equitable caregivers' rights, anytime the court could have a finding, that we put a process in place. a process that we do all the time, where a parent can petition the court at a certain interval if they can make a certain showing, based on a specific amount of evidence. We do stuff like that all the time to manage these conflicts. But as written, these 4 lines, it's unclear. It's completely unclear what rights a parent has. Could they petition a court once a week, once a month, to say, I think there's no more risk of harm, I think there's no more risk of harm? Theoretically, the way this is written, it could embroil equitable caregivers and the families, the entire family and the disparate elements within it, in constant litigation over whether or not the equitable caregiver relationship could be terminated. And given how close that person is to the child and how the judge has already found by clear and convincing evidence how important that relationship is, how traumatic is that? To subject a family to constant litigation over whether somebody who's standing in as a parent can continue to have that basic relationship. The child support issue is an interesting one, and there may be a debate about it, but I can just represent to you that the Georgia Code recognizes that child support can be paid to non-parent custodians. And the reason is because child support goes to the child. It is the child's property. And so however it's supposed to get to the child, that's how it needs to get there. And in a way, that issue with the bill, which is a problem, is symbolic. It's emblematic of the problem with the whole bill, which is this is not a bill that was motivated by policy concerns about what's best for the child. This bill is motivated by a concern, a hypothetical concern about a legal challenge that has to do with the rights of a parent. This is a parent-focused bill, not a child-focused bill. And that is the expressed concern that some advocates have shared. My request for you today, ladies and gentlemen of the House, is there's always an opportunity to try to, as I've said before, fix something in the Senate or come back next year or do something later. But we can't allow subsection K in this bill to disrupt a really effective, really beautiful, honestly, system that has already started to help families do what's best for children, just based on a hypothetical concern about how this could be litigated. The families, advocates, constituents, they don't want us to break something that isn't broken. And if courts tell us we need to adjust course because of constitutional concerns, we will do that. But let's wait until that happens. I appreciate your time today, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Okay. The chair of the committee is going to use the chairman's time. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Chairman's time under the rules will be 20 minutes, and the chair recognizes Chairman F. Strachan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be very brief. A lot was just said about what the motivation was to bring this. This motivation, what's motivating me to bring this is not that this was given to me by anybody else. Not that some advocate said this is what we should do. It is purely from the perspective of doing what's best for the child, and that is by ensuring that this statute remains on the books, ensuring that we address these issues which, as the previous speaker said, he would prefer that we just wait and see what the courts do with it. Well, it's not a 20-year-old Supreme Court opinion that we're interpreting. We have case law from 2018, the Georgia Supreme Court, Justice Blackwell and Patton versus Artis, about the grandparent visitation statute that we all care so much about. Georgia's grandparent visitation statute was invalidated in 2018 by our Supreme Court in a unanimous opinion, arguing that because the law didn't specify the standards that's included in Senate Bill 86, that it was unconstitutional. So you do have a very clear decision to make. If you care about Georgia's kids and you care about judges being able to award custody under the equitable caregiver statute, you're a yes on Senate Bill 86 today. It's that clear. I mean, it really is. It's that straightforward. I'd ask that if you have any question, he wants to talk about subsection K. Lines 138 and 139 in this bill, existing law. Existing law says equitable caregiver doesn't end a parent's rights. If respectfully, if the representative wants to change that, bring a bill. Bring a bill to say you terminate parental rights if an equitable caregiver statute's utilized. But that's not the state of the law. This protection is not just about court interpretations. It's about ensuring that, that our laws that we pass are constitutional and that we have a statute that we know will be in place many years down the road. It truly is all about ensuring that judges can protect children. And a green vote for this bill is the best way to do that here today. And I'd ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Okay, is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. She's not lit up. What purpose does Representative Erica Thomas rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it true that this bill would help to keep kids out of the foster care system?
I know that's the gentleman's intent, and I think it could be fairly read that way. Yes, I do. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of Senate Bill 86. The ayes are 97, the nays are 69. This bill, having received a requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Chair recognizes Chairman England for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House disagree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 81.
Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 81 by Representative Ralston, the 7th, Jones, the 47th, Burns, the 159th, and others to be entitled an act to make and provide appropriations for the state fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022.
Chair recognizes Chairman England to explain his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just our first move on getting us to a conference committee on the FY22 state budget. Thank you.
On the gentleman's motion that the House disagree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 81, is there any objection? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the House has disagreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 81. Clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions.
Honoring the life and memory of Martin Walton Neesmith. Honoring the life and memory of Yong A. Yu. Honoring the life and memory of Major Lars G. Trey Pearson. Honoring the life and memory of Dr. William Eugene Diskay. Congratulating the Towns County Boys Basketball Team for winning the 2021 Class A Public Boys Basketball Championship. Recognizing and commending Yacindi Martin Kipai. Congratulating the Dodge County High School's competition cheerleaders for winning the 2021 GHSA Class AA State Cheerleading Championship. Congratulating the Calvary Day High School Girls Varsity Flag Football Team for winning the 2020-2021 GHSA Class 1A 5A Girls Flag Football State Championship. Recognizing and commending Blake Summers for winning the 2021 Region 8 AA Individual State Championship. Recognizing and commending Morehouse College Polo Club. Congratulating the cross-country boys basketball team for winning the GHSA Class 3A State Basketball Championship. Congratulating the Cross Creek High School girls basketball team for winning the GHSA Class 3A State Basketball Championship. Congratulating the TW Josie High School girls basketball team for winning the 2020-2021 GHSA Class 2A Girls State Basketball Championship. And for other purposes, that completes the reading of the privilege resolutions.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. What purpose does Chairman Dubnik rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that Senate Bill 42 be recommitted to the House Education Committee.
Clerk will read the caption.
Senate Bill 42 by Senator Mullis, the 53rd, Gooch, the 51st, Harbison, the 15th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 20:14:33 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to indicators of quality of learning in individual schools and school systems.
On the chairman's motion that Senate Bill 42 be recommitted to the Education Committee, is there any objection? Is there objection? Chair hears none, and it is so ordered. What purpose does the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee rise?
For a motion.
State your motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House temporarily suspend the rules to allow the Speaker to receive House Bill 81 back from the Senate, insist on our position, and appoint a committee of conference.
Clerk will read the caption again. Or is it back?
House Bill 81 by Representative Ralston of the 7th, Burns and Jones. Appropriations from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
He could do that in his sleep. The chairman of the Appropriations Committee has moved that this House temporarily suspend its rules to allow the chair to receive a disagreement from the Senate on House Bill 81, to insist on the House position and appoint a committee of conference. Is there any objection to that motion? Hearing none, it is so ordered, and at the appropriate time, the chair will appoint as a committee of conference Representative England of the 116th, Representative Burns of the 159th, and Representative Jones of the 47th. We have a birthday today. We have a birthday. Oh, I'm sorry, tomorrow. We have a birthday tomorrow. Please help me wish an early happy birthday to Representative Brian Prince. If you have signed up for an announcement, please make your way to the front of the chamber. The chair recognizes Chairman Hatchett for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Majority Caucus will meet upon adjournment in the Floyd Room at Twin Towers. Lunch is served.
Chair recognizes Representative Alexander for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Women Caucus, immediately upon adjournment, we will have a meeting virtually. Lunches are ready in room 216. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Rick Williams and Representative Mac Jackson for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We come together to invite everyone to come down to the South Steps at 1 o'clock today. We're having a press conference. It's on Gracie's Law. Gracie and her family will be here. And Brother Mac?
Thank you. We're excited about this, and we hope that we can get it passed in the Senate. Thank you. We yield the well.
Thank you.
I wish I could tell you, Representative Jackson, that I'm optimistic. Chair recognizes Chairman Watson for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rural Caucus will meet tomorrow for lunch at 12 o'clock over at Twin Towers. It'll be our last meeting of the year. We'll be talking about our scholarships that we're going to award, and we'll be having Mag Mutual and Cancer Treatment Centers of America as our host. So hope everybody can be there. It'll be 12 o'clock.
Chair recognizes Chairman Dubnik for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please take note, members of the House Education Committee. We will meet at 3 p.m. today, 3 p.m. and 341 of the Capitol. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Parsons for an announcement.
Thank you. Thank you, Speaker Ralston. Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications will not meet today. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the distinguished chair of the Minority Caucus, Chairman Mitchell, for an announcement.
I appreciate that, Mr. Speaker. That may appear in a brochure subsequently. Speaker
Not if you want to win.
The Democratic Caucus will indeed meet today upon adjournment in 514 in the CLOB. Lunch will be served. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Ron Stevens for an announcement.
Thanks, Speaker. The Economic Development and Tourism Committee will meet tomorrow at 10:30 in the Rules Room, 341.
Chair recognizes Chairman Petrie for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Human Relations and Aging Committee will be meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock in room 341, taking up 2 bills. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Dickey for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have a House Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committee meeting today at 1:30, 403 Capitol, upstairs. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Timothy Barr for an announcement.
Thank you, sir. Listen up, fellowship, we're canceling for tomorrow. We're going to be on for Thursday morning. So those in the fellowship group, 7 o'clock, Thursday morning, same room. Thank y'all.
That completes our announcements. The chair recognizes the majority leader of this House for a motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand in recess until 3 p.m. today and then stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Thursday, March 25th, 2021 for Legislative Day 38.
The majority leader has moved. that this House will be in recess until 3 o'clock p.m. this afternoon, whereupon we will be adjourned until Thursday, March 25th at 10 a.m. All those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed will say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. This House will be in recess till 3 p.m. and then we will be adjourned until Thursday at 10 a.m.